Good evening and welcome to Hear, O Israel. We're broadcasting from the studios of NCCI in Decatur, Georgia, and on behalf of everyone who assists in the production of Hear, O Israel, I'd like to thank you for joining us tonight. My name is Tamar Israel, and I'll be your hostess for tonight's show. Here with me in the studios are my sisters, Sister Samara and Johanna Israel.
Shalom.
Welcome to the show, sisters.
Thank you.
Our topic for tonight is entitled The Great Deceiver, of the Great Temptation, actually. And we're going to be talking about that great deceiver, who is Satan, called the devil and the dragon. But many people don't really believe that there is a devil. They think it's a figment of the imagination. And lots of people have created pictures of some, being that's half human, half man, half human, half animal, and said that he lives somewhere underneath the earth. But are these true? Are these true depictions of Satan or the devil? Well, that's what our show is all about tonight. So as we attempt to go through the Bible, we're dealing with chapters 3 of the Bible where Adam and Eve was actually tempted by the devil. But before we get into that, I'd like to give you a thorough understanding of who this being is that is called the devil. So let's go ahead and get into, is there anywhere in the scriptures that really talks about Lucifer and what he looks like?
There is. And it's actually really funny because the myth or the depiction that we've been given all this time is the complete opposite of what the scriptures give us as far as what he looks like. And I'm going to pick this up coming out of the book of Ezekiel, chapter 28, and I'm going to start at verse 12. Son of man, take up a lamentation upon the king of Tyre, and say unto him, Thus says Yahweh Elohim, you sealed up the sum full of wisdom and perfect in beauty. Now this is talking about Lucifer. You have been in Eden, the garden of Elohim. Every precious stone was your covering, the sardius, topaz, and the diamond, the beryl, the onyx, and the jasper, the sapphire, the emerald, and the carbuncle, and gold. The workmanship of your tabrets and of your pipes was prepared in you in the day that you were created. You are the anointed cherub that covers, and I have set you so. You was upon the holy mountain of Elohim. You have walked up and down in the midst of stones of fire. You was perfect in your ways from the day that you were created, till iniquity was found in you. Now, if you just listen to the different stones that were being described in verse 13, those are the most beautiful and precious stones that everybody, if you can just think of it, it just illuminates. He's just full of precious stones. He's beautiful, completely different than the depiction that we've been given.
Absolutely, because the depiction that Christianity has given is this beast, actually. And all of the movies you see, especially some of the movies today where it talks about Lucifer, especially Roman Catholic movies, have depicted this awful creature. But that's not what you just read at all. Johanna, do you want to talk a little bit more on that?
Yeah, actuality, we have a couple of graphics also that's kind of dealing with that. But what you've seen, some of those pictures and graphics that portray Satan, actually I'll read it. It says, Satan portrayed as a hoofed creature that's red in color with little horns on his head. And you'll see that in some of those. And it says, but this description is not biblical. It says that this hoofed being that we usually see is actually closer to that of Pan. That's a Greek god from Greek mythology. And it says, and it goes on with this, it says that knowing that one day that people would, just like you stated in the very beginning, think that Satan actually is a mythological creature and not actually real.
Right.
So these depictions that we have are not of Satan, not of this devil that is my sister described in Ezekiel 28, but truly that of a mythical creature. And we find throughout the scriptures that the scriptures do deal with what the pagans they hold very highly,
very dear,
and very dear in regard. So truly, this is not the ideology of the devil or Satan or Lucifer, because we know Lucifer, that means light, light bearer.
Absolutely. And there's a great society, a secret society that's called the Illuminated Ones or the Illuminati, and they take their name from the name Lucifer. And that is truly the name of this angelic being.
Right.
Samara, you mentioned a couple of things I want to bring out. You said that he was an anointed cherub. Now, cherubs are angels. So Lucifer, or the devil, or Satan, is an angelic being. He was created by the Most High himself to do his will and actually to cover the mercy seat. If you think about the children of Israel in the wilderness, Yahweh told Moshe to make the holy things expressly as he told them. And he told them to make that mercy seat with these two angelic beings covering that mercy seat. Well, Lucifer was one of those angelic beings that covered the mercy seat in heaven. And he was given complete dominion over the earth and over the rulership over the earth. And as a matter of fact, he still has that dominion. People don't want to believe that or understand that, but he is the king over the earth. And there are many scriptures that talk to that fact. However, people would much rather believe in him as do all their other mythological creatures, gods and goddesses, as Johanna spoke of. But it's not a true factor in terms of the scriptures. And we must have that anchor. We must have that foundation, which is the scriptures. And we must understand that he has all power, but he's still under the domain and the dominion of the Most High himself. So we cannot think of him of this half beast, half creature living somewhere in a place, this fictitious Greek place called Hades or hell. It's not. It doesn't exist. It's not real.
And the problem with seeing him and picturing him in this fashion means that you would think that you would see him coming when he came.
Right.
Not in the beautiful form that we see every day coming at us.
Right.
So that's where your trickery and all that comes from. I wanted to pick up in Isaiah 14, starting at verse 12, and it speaks a little more to the character of Lucifer. And in verse 12 it says, "How art thou fallen from heaven, O Lucifer, son of the morning? How art thou cut down to the ground, which did weaken the nations?" And this is speaking of in future tense. "For you have said in your heart," and this is where the problem comes in. Just like you spoke, you said that he was given one of the angels of the mercy seat, the very highest of the angels.
Correct.
And he said in his heart that he will ascend into heaven. So what he was given wasn't good enough. The beauty which he was given and the power which he was given was not enough. He said in his heart he wanted to ascend into heaven. He said he will exalt his throne above the stars of Elohim. He said, "I will sit up also upon the mount of the congregation in the sides of the north. I will ascend above the heights of the clouds. I will be like the Most High." So truly, his true intentions are to be like the Most High, to take the place of the Most High. What he's given, second best wasn't good enough.
Right.
And he was not happy with that. So therein comes his problem. And with that comes vanity. Because vanity is the highest sin that there is. I mean, not the highest sin, but it is the major problem. And is also the what they call the Satan's first sin. And there's also the sin that caused man/woman to fall. Vanity.
Absolutely.
And I have a quick one of the definitions of vanity includes inflated pride in oneself or appearance. And that comes in so many different forms, because vanity, the problem with vanity, it brings on other sins. Because you have to try to maintain this form of vanity, and you'll lie, steal, cheat, and kill, whatever is necessary, just like in the case of Cain. Whatever is necessary in order to maintain this vanity, one's own self-thoughts of one. So that's really, and I wanted this one verse I wanted to read real quick in Jeremiah 18, and that's in verse 15. And that one tells you just how much people, and our people, particularly now and in the past, really loved vanity, dealt with it. And this is speaking to our people in verse 15. "Because my people, being Israel, have forgotten me, they have burned incense to vanity." So that's truly deep. Not only are it's so much a part of us, we actually burn incense to vanity. We still do, just not in the literal sense.
Right. It's that whole concept of meology and self. And as we get into the scriptures, when Lucifer actually begins to deal with mankind, we'll see, as you stated, it was the whole issue was vanity. And Samara read in Ezekiel two things. Number one, that Lucifer was perfect in the ways in which he was created until iniquity was found in him. And in Ezekiel 28 verse 17 it says, "Your heart was lifted up because of your beauty. You have corrupted your wisdom by reason of your brightness." But listen to what Yahweh says, "I will cast you to the ground. I will lay you before kings that they may behold you." So Lucifer has a problem coming. He still controls the earth, but at the end he's going to be cast to the ground. And never shall he rise to continue to throw out these wicked ways so that mankind can fall. So let's get into the first fall of mankind. Obviously, since the very beginning, we've been subject to Lucifer's influence and his devilish ways. And there's two things you got to do. You either got to hear the commandments of Yahweh or listen to Lucifer. Our first mother and father, what? listen to Lucifer. So let's get into that a little bit. Tell us what happened.
Well, let's pick it up in the book of Genesis. Yahweh had given Adam and Eve a commandment. And I'm going to pick this up in Genesis chapter 2, and I'm going to start at verse 15. And Yahweh Elohim took the man and put him in the garden of Eden to dress it and to keep it. And Yahweh Elohim commanded the man, saying, Of every tree of the garden you may eat freely, but of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil you shall not eat of it, for in the day that you eat thereof you shall surely die. But then here comes Lucifer, again with his own agenda.
Right.
And he says in chapter 3, I'm going to pick this up at verse 1. Now the serpent was more subtle than any beast of the field, which Yahweh Elohim had made. And he said unto the woman, Yes, has Elohim said, You shall not eat of every tree of the garden? And the woman said unto the serpent, We may eat of the fruit of the trees of the garden, but of the fruit of the tree which is in the midst of the garden, Elohim has said, You shall not eat of it, neither shall you touch it, lest you die. And the serpent said unto the woman, You shall not surely die. For Elohim does know that in the day that you eat thereof, then your eyes shall be opened, and you shall be as gods, knowing good and evil.
First mistake.
First mistake. And because of vanity, you know, Eve, she took her mind off of Yah and said, okay, well, I'm going to be somebody. You know, I'm going to have this wisdom and this knowledge, and I'm going to be able to be somebody. So I'm tempted. I'm going to go ahead and do this because of my vanity.
Right.
And that's where we all succumb to, because we all have it.
Ever since that act, mankind has followed after that suit, becoming gods.
Right.
But Adam and Eve were given dominion over the whole earth.
That
They
wasn't
were
enough.
gods.
That
With a
wasn't
little Jew. Right. G, rather. But Lucifer whispered something in her ear. In other words, he said, God lied to you. There's some scripture in Matthew. I believe it's John chapter 8, verse 44. Let's go and pick that up, because it's very important that even in the New Testament, Yahshua made sure that we knew what Lucifer was and his role, what his role is. John chapter 8, verse 44. Yeah, that's not right. I apologize. But basically what he said was, he said, you are of your father, the devil. And your father's work you will do. Do you all have it?
You have it. You're right.
Oh,
It's
I'm in the
44.
wrong one. That's why. Okay. Sorry about that. Verse 44. You are of your father, the devil, and the lust of your father you will do. He was a murderer from the beginning and abode not in the truth, because there is no truth in him. When he speaks a lie, he speaks of his own, for he is a liar and the father of it. He told Eve a lie. He said, you're not going to surely die. Eve didn't die a natural death, but she died a spiritual death, separated from the Most High. And that's why when the Most High came walking in the garden, and he said, where are you? They went and they hid themselves. They were afraid, because once they ate of that forbidden fruit, everything was made manifest to them, which they thought was evil. Everything. So being naked was no thought before that. But once they ate of that fruit, they thought, my God, I'm ashamed. Let me hide myself. But Johanna, tell me, was it a fruit? Was it an apple? It talks about the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil. What was it?
Well, just like you said, everyone always thinks that it is an apple. That's the first thing that's always thought. And nowhere in the scriptures will you find the fact that it is an apple.
Right.
So the fact that everybody believes that it's an apple obviously comes from the figmentation of man's mind, just like everything else.
Right.
Nowhere does it say. We have a graphic here, and it says the forbidden fruit wasn't an apple.
Right.
And you have a lot of options. On the second line, it says, or one of the thousands of fruits that exist on earth. The third one is, or one of the hundreds of fruits that presently do not exist on earth.
And do you know how many Christians that go to church Sunday after Sunday after Sunday and still will promote this lie? But we just read that Satan is the father of a lie.
Right.
Why lie about what happened? Let's talk about the truth. They now had knowledge of vanity and Lucifer's ways. In the New Testament, they call it the fruits of Lucifer.
Right.
Greed, lust, vanity, all evil.
Right.
That's what Lucifer has brought upon the earth. And for that reason, mankind continues to fall deeper and deeper into what is known as sin.
Right.
What is sin?
Well, if you go back to what my sister was speaking about, the vanity that was caused by the Satan to the woman, to Eve, that vanity caused, if you look in the scripture, what she just read, it went from the vanity of, I can be like the Most High, I can be like a God, to she looked at the fruit and said, it is good to eat. So now she went into coveting.
Right.
She actually, oh, you know, this is not mine. I was told not to take it, but now I want it, and I'm going to take it. So she went then from coveting into theft.
Exactly.
So now here, we've gotten into two of the commandments that she shouldn't have been dealing with in the first place, all stemming from vanity.
Now, of course, Yahweh gave them one commandment. There were many trees in the garden,
Right.
okay? And he said, of all these trees you may eat, except for one.
Right.
Don't touch it, don't eat of it. They had one commandment, and they could have lived like kings and queens on the earth.
Forever.
Right.
But they didn't. That didn't happen, did it?
So in essence, he slew them right then. Right then is murder. He killed them.
Right.
Might not have happened immediately in the flesh, which did later come, but in the spirit, immediately.
Right. And you know, if we go to this one, is in dealing with that as far as living forever and everything, we know that they were told, like you said, only one commandment, not to deal with that particular tree, which is a tree of knowledge of good and evil.
Right.
But we know that they could have eaten from the tree of life because they were
Correct.
not commanded against that.
Correct.
And that is why when you go into, I think here it is, in Genesis 3, verse 22, it said, and Yahweh Elohim said, behold, the man is become as one of us, to know good and evil. And now lest he put forth his hand and take also of the tree of life and eat and live forever. So
Exactly.
he wasn't going to allow that. You know,
That's
you've
right.
already shown that, you know, that you're a sinner, that they
Right.
were sinners, and they were not going to live forever because of that. So they could have done that, and like you said, live forever, but they chose not. They chose to listen to the master deceiver.
Exactly. And for that reason, Yahweh put them out of the garden. Now, Eden, of course, is from the Nile River all the way over to the great river Euphrates. But right there in the middle is the Garden of Eden, which we know today as Jerusalem, Israel. That is the garden. And they were kicked out of that land, and a cherub angel was placed there, keeping the way of the garden and what? That tree of life. Because after that, Yahweh knew that mankind was going to follow Lucifer and not him. But Yahweh had plans for that too, and that's when we'll get into this whole knowledge of the woman seed versus Satan's seed. But before we do that, let's talk a little bit about, of course, whenever you disobey Yahweh, there's a consequence
Most
for your
definitely.
action. Tell me about the consequences not only to Lucifer, but to Adam and to Eve. What did Yahweh pronounce upon them from that sin?
Well, he said to the serpent, and we can pick this up in the book of Genesis and read exactly what he said, coming out of chapter 3, and I'm going to start at verse 14. And Yahweh Elohim said unto the serpent, because you have done this, you are cursed above all cattle, and above every beast of the field. Upon your belly shall you go, and dust shall you eat all the days of your life. And I will put enmity between you and the woman, and between your seed and her seed. He shall bruise your head, and you shall bruise his heel.
Okay, now let's dissect those two verses before we move on. First of all, the serpent came to her and spoke. Obviously, because of the curse, the serpent was not slithering around on the ground like we know it today.
Right.
And you talked about it in the beginning that the serpent was a very subtle, very beautiful creature. And there's still remnants of that beauty in snakes today. But the curse was that he would slither around on his belly, eating dust from that point on, because he allowed himself to be used by this angelic being who can come in and out of whoever he wills
At will.
and make them do what they want. The great example of that is when Judas Iscariot, remember at the Last Supper, Yahshua told him, he said, go, do what you will. And that moment, Satan entered into that brother and caused him to go out and to sell the Messiah and to give him up to those who were trying to kill him. So Lucifer entered into the serpent, and that's why today the serpent is one of his symbols. And you see it on many buildings, many governmental buildings, many religious buildings.
Pharmaceuticals.
It's everywhere. So all these symbols, especially the snake and also the dragon, and many countries have the dragon as their emblem in their state, whatever, like China. But these are symbols of satanic worship, Satan himself. let's talk a little bit about, you said the woman, that there was enmity or a division put between the woman's seed and Satan's seed. Jonna, talk to me a little bit about that. What is this woman's seed?
Well, the woman's seed, you go down the lineage, you'll see that truly is spiritual Israel, those that keep the commandments and deal with the Messiah. And you can pick that up in Revelations 12, and it goes to that point. That those will be the ones that Satan and his demons would be after for all times.
Right.
Until he is put down forever and stamped down.
You just mentioned in Isaiah 12 that his purpose was to go after not only the people, the woman's seed, but also Jerusalem itself, the garden. He was going to sit on that high hill claiming to be God, because it wasn't enough to be covering the seat of Yah. He wanted to sit on that seat. Okay, let's go back into, Sister Samir, let's go back into the curses. We talked about the curse of the serpent. Let's deal with the curse of the woman.
Okay, we're going to pick this up in Genesis chapter 3 and continue on, starting at verse 16. Unto the woman he said, I will greatly multiply your sorrow and your conception. In sorrow you shall bring forth children, and your desire shall be to your husband, and he shall rule over you.
Big
now,
statement.
I can testify that this is true. Having children is a painful thing.
That's right.
And women are still going through this. So when Yahweh says something, he very well means it, and it's very prevalent to this day.
Absolutely.
And the same thing with the desire being to your husband. Every woman has that desire, wanting to be married, most of us anyway, and he shall rule over you. Those were the things that were placed down upon women, and they still stand to this very day.
Absolutely. You know, in the 60s, lots of things came out of the 60s, not just the civil rights movement, but also a movement called the Feminist Movement.
Right.
And as a result of that, Satan has stirred up women to say, I don't want a man to rule over me, trying to do away with this curse that was placed on womankind. So now you have women lovers of their own selves. You know, you have women leading households and don't need a man, women being artificially inseminated so that they won't have to become impregnated by a man. All of this is to try to overcome what Yahweh has placed upon woman. But it won't happen until Yahweh brings back his kingdom and Lucifer is no longer in control of this earth.
Right. You know, it also is another connection with that is the whole issue of surrogate mothers. So now there would be her egg and so forth, and whichever donor sperm there is, place it in a separate woman. Let her deal with the pain of childbirth, and then give her back her baby. So that's really trying to get completely away from what Yah set up, that you will have pain during childbirth, travail.
Absolutely.
And to annihilate and move the sons of Yahweh totally out of the picture. That's Satan's whole deal anyway.
Yes.
And before long, what are they trying to do? To clone their own children, to clone mankind, so that you don't have to worry about any of this. Satan has really made mankind believe that they are gods. The first sin, the first lie. Man is not a god. Dust you are, and dust you shall return. And ever since there's been mankind, they have died. That lets you know that the breath of your life is not your own. You can't control it. But they're doing it.
And that's why he's the master deceiver. I mean, the things that he has set upon the earth right now, people just would never even think to connect with him, because he is very good at what he does. He is truly the adversary. And he is seeking to destroy Israel, in which he, you know, if it weren't for Yahweh's mercy, he would have completely done that by now.
Absolutely.
And he is just out here, everything that you see in the world that is going on with the things with, you know, casting out the men, and we can clone, and we can be gods, and we're going all up to heaven and space and all that. All those things come from Lucifer.
Absolutely. Johanna, let's talk about the last curse that was placed on Adam himself.
Okay, the fact that, let me see, we're in verse 17. And it says, I don't have that 17. Let me go to 3, the proper 17. Okay. And it says, unto Adam he said, because you have hearkened unto the voice of thy wife, and have eaten of the tree of which I commanded thee, saying, thou shalt not eat of it. Cursed is the ground for thy sake, and in sorrow shalt thou eat of it all the days of thy life. And I'll go into 18 also. Thorns also and thistles shall it bring forth to thee, and you shall eat of the herb of the field.
19 too.
It is the sweat, in the sweat of thy face shall you also, that shalt thou eat bread till thou return unto the ground. For out of it were you taken, and for dust you are, and unto dust you shall return. So before in the Garden of Eden, we know that everything grew freely. There was no thought, no conversation given to man having to fertilize the ground, having to till the ground, having to water the ground, none of those things. So at this point now, everything's changed. All this basically a rainforest type of deal is now going to a desert,
thorns and thistles.
You gotta work. So you got to, that's where your whole working the land and working the field and so forth comes from. So this was what was done to man. This was his curse. And we know today, I think you have a graphic there, talks about the bioengineered foods and so forth. From the bioengineered foods to all the chemical fertilizers that exist and all the other things that they've done. They're trying, again, just like in the woman's case, trying to go against, trying to negate Yahweh's curse. And because in being a God, you don't want the true God to have dominion over you. So you want to get rid of his curse and make it so that it doesn't exist. And this is truly what mankind has been doing from the beginning.
From the very beginning. And they are killing us with all these chemicals and pesticides that has been placed in the ground that runs right into the rivers, into the oceans, into the lakes that we drink our waters from. Children are growing up deformed as a result of it. But now, like you said, they have a new thing. We can clone our own vegetables. We can go ahead and hybrid these seeds so that we can make God alive. You know, he's not God, we are. And as you can see, scientists today and doctors today that carry that emblem of the snake, the serpent, believe that they truly are gods. But we'll see.
And and just even speaking about what you said as far as the emblem of the snake, we know, just like you stated, that the emblem of the snake is the snake or serpent Satan actually went into himself, because in many cases we know that his own angels, demons, go into people and cause them to do things. And in things that he feels most important, he goes in himself, just like in the case of Judas Iscariot. We read that actually Satan himself, Lucifer, entered into him. So it wasn't just a demon like we read about in so many other scriptures and also in the letters, but him himself. So he does go in when he deems necessary specifically.
Absolutely. I'd like to read in Genesis chapter 5, because this goes back to the curse that was placed on Adam, because it wasn't until, well, actually it's still happening, but listen to what Lamech says when he is given a son whose name was Noah. This is in chapter 5, verse 29. Verse 28, and Lamech lived 108 years and begat a son, and he called his name Noah, saying, this same shall comfort us concerning our work and toil of our hands, because of the ground which Yahweh has cursed. Now this was a couple of 1,000 years later that here this man is saying, okay, maybe through this man Yahweh will give us some rest from the toil of our hands. But through Noah, we know what happened. Yahweh destroyed the earth, because from Adam and Eve all the way down to Noah, the earth became more and more satanic, taking on Lucifer's ways of envy, jealousy, greed, hatred, vanity. And that's the same way we are today. So we're ripe for another destruction right here today. All right, sisters, so what happened is sin entered into the world. The first sin, again, was the great lie that was told. And of course, lies and death and murder has continued since that time. We know that once that first lie took place, then the first murder took place. One brother against another. And Yahweh said, Cain, where's your brother? And he said, well, am I my brother's keeper? But we are our brother's keeper. We should be more mindful of our brother, because in doing so, we show that we love the Most High. But we've gotten away from that. So now, mankind kills their brother, their mother, their father, and they go on to slew anyone that gets in the way of their own greed and self-aggrandizement. In other words, whatever I want, nobody's going to stand in my way, because I will destroy him. And that certainly is Lucifer's ways today.
And it all relates back to my sister, what she was talking about earlier, in vanity. I mean, it's all vanity. just like the things that happen, we have the people like athletes and entertainers. I mean, Satan just dangles all kinds of material vanity in front of our faces, and we'll do whatever it takes to obtain those things. Not understanding that it's leading to death. You know, it's taking you further and further from the Most High.
Correct.
Because you have to go through all kinds of things to keep those things. You know.
And what people don't understand is sin. Even back during the time of Cain. Let's go back and read that, because I think it's in chapter 4. Chapter 4, verse, I'm going to pick it up at verse 6. Both Abel and Cain brought sacrifices. And we know that sacrifices are usually done to what? Cover one's sin. Verse 6, and Yahweh said unto Cain, why are you wroth, and why is your countenance fallen? If you do well, shall you not be accepted? And if you do not well, sin lies at the door. And unto you shall be his desire, and you shall rule over him. And Cain talked with Abel and his brother, and it came to pass, when they were in the field, that Cain rose up and slew his brother. And Yahweh said unto Cain, where is Abel your brother? And he said, I know not. Am I my brother's keeper? And he said, what have you done? The voice of your brother's blood cries unto me from the ground. And now you are cursed from the earth, which has opened her mouth to receive your brother's blood from your hand. So blood, the essence of life, was spilled. And ever since that one murder has been, I mean, it's the biggest crime that's committed today. But they don't understand that it's Lucifer. He was a murderer from the beginning and a liar from the beginning because of these two things. But doesn't mankind go on it today?
Yeah.
Jonna, tell me, what is sin? Because people don't understand what is the definition of sin. Obviously, the Christian church teaches us something different.
Well, that's an excellent question. I've asked that to many Christians, and I've been told that sin is going to clubs, sin is drinking liquor, sin is smoking cigarettes, sin is wearing I don't know, wearing something that they feel is inappropriate. Yeah, all that, you know.
Jewelry?
So jewelry, yeah, I've definitely heard that one. Sin is, I've even heard that sin is having musical instruments. You know, playing with musical instruments instead of just being a cappella. So I've heard a lot of that stuff. But
Or
it's
dancing.
like, right, exactly. It's like, okay, but can you show me that?
Right.
No, they never can show it to me. And I was like, okay, well, let's look here in 1 John. 1 John and chapter 3, and let's pick it up here at verse 4. And this is what sin is. Whosoever committeth sin transgresseth also the law. For what? Sin is the transgression of the law. That's kind of cut and dry for me.
Very.
I mean, you know, I get that. And if I want to say that, okay, the transgression of the law, what is that? I know I got to flip back for the first 5 books of the Bible.
Right.
That is the law. Everything in there tells me if I go against what it says, what have I done but sinned?
Exactly. And what did Yahweh say about the wages of sin?
Death.
It's death.
It's death.
Our first parents realized that when they were kicked out of the garden and they were without the Spirit of the Most High. And we are without the Spirit when we don't do what He says. So people continue to sin every day because they don't understand what sin is. You've got to go back and deal with the law. You've got to understand what you should eat, who you should marry, who you should not marry, who you should worship, how you must worship. That's law. And the Christian church and all other religions have taken mankind away from the laws of Yahweh. And isn't that what Lucifer wanted?
Yes. See, that's the deception of Lucifer. I mean, his whole deal is to try to get us to sin, actually transgress from the laws of Yahweh, so he can run up there and say, see, look at those people, look at Israel, I told you they weren't about anything, they're not doing anything you said they were supposed to do anyway. But he does. See, that's the major thing. You know, he has the whole world transgressing Yahweh's laws, but he doesn't.
Exactly.
You know, he's keeping them.
Yeah,
He keeps all of it.
all holy days. Where is he?
Right up there, front row and center, where he's supposed to be.
Right. Whereas everybody else is, you know,
Partying somewhere, but that he started the party and then he left to go keep it along.
I want to deal with that a little bit more because of this whole fact that Lucifer tempts you. He comes and whispers something in your ear. You don't have to fall for that, just like Eve didn't or Adam didn't, but they did. Let's deal with one of the more prevalent temptations in the scripture. I'd like to deal with two, actually, with Job and the Messiah. So first, talk to me about what happened with Job, the story about Job, and as you stated, Satan was keeping the law at that time too. And then we're going to deal with the Messiah himself and his temptation. So let's go into the book of Job first.
Yeah. I mean, a lot of people are familiar with the book of Job and his story, the fact that he was, he was pretty much broken down from, from his money and his children and all those things, and then even to his own body. But the fact of the matter is, one of the main things that you have to deal with, obviously, Satan the entire time. First of all, he had to give permission to Yahweh for every single thing he did. He could, he had no power unless Yahweh gives it to him, and that is the case today. That's why he's in power, because Yahweh has allowed him to.
Right.
So that was the case. So each time we know he went back to say, well, I took this from him. What can I? If I take this, I know he'll curse you to his face. He even got to his wife to tell his wife to come to him. So even though he didn't whisper to him, because he knew Job wasn't listening to that, he went to his wife to have his wife whisper to him, and his wife said, "Just go ahead, curse God and die." Now, what is that for the wife to say? But something coming that was whispered, just like you spoke, whispered into her ear to give it to him.
That's
because
what
that
Satan
doesn't
wants.
Because so obviously we know that comes directly from Satan.
Absolutely. In the book of Job, chapter 1, I'm going to pick this up in verse 6. It says, "And there was a day when the sons of Elohim came to present themselves before Yahweh, and Satan came also." Now, that's something, isn't it? The sons of Elohim are the angels and mankind who know that they are sons. And they know also that there are 3 times in the year when all the males must appear before Yahweh. But like you said, there's Satan standing in his appearance, being counted on the scene. What? Obeying the commandments. And you can pick that up in Levi 23rd chapter, and also in the book of Numbers and in the book of Deuteronomy. 3 times in the year, in the time of Passover, in the time of the Pentecost, and in the time of the Feast of Tabernacles. So let's see what happens here. "And Yahweh said unto Satan, From whence cometh you? Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, From going to and fro and up and down in the earth." Isn't that what the Pope does? That's their symbol.
Yep.
That's Satan's reign. From going where? To and fro and up and down in the earth. Why? Because he's roaring around seeking one to destroy him, to keep man from following the commandments of Yahweh. Okay, verse 7. "And then Satan answered and said, From going to and fro in the earth, and from walking up and down in it. And Yahweh said unto Satan, Have you considered my servant Job, that there is none like him in the earth, a perfect and an upright man, one that fears Yah and eschews evil? Then Satan answered Yahweh and said, Does Job fear you for nothing? Have you not made a hedge about him and about his house and about all that he has on every side? And you have blessed the work of his hands, and his substance is increased in the land. But put forth now your hand and touch all that he has, and he will curse you to your face. And Yahweh said unto Satan, Behold, all that he has is in your power. Only upon himself put not forth your hand. So Satan went forth from the presence of Yahweh. That speaks volumes, doesn't it? It absolutely speaks volumes. But tell us, I mean, this shows that Lucifer is still under the dominion and the control of Yah. He can do anything more than what Yahweh allows. And that's for us today too. So we have to resist the tempter. We cannot succumb to his whispering in our ear to reject the commandments of Yahweh. Let's go into when Yeshua, when he was tempted. I think it's in Luke chapter 4. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Now you know he's bold. He went straight after that seed that we read about earlier in Genesis. You know, he's going straight to the Messiah. And we can pick that up in the book of Luke chapter 4. And I'm going to start reading at verse 1. "And Yeshua, being full of the Holy Ghost, returned from the Jordan, and was led by the Spirit into the wilderness, being 40 days tempted by the devil." 40 days now. "And in those days he did eat nothing, and when they were ended, he afterward was hungry. And the devil said unto him, If you be the son of Elohim, command this stone that it may be made bread. And Yahshua answered him, saying, It is written, Man shall not live by bread alone, but by every word of Elohim.
It is written.
In the law.
Keep the law. Go ahead, sister.
Verse 5. And the devil, taking him up into a high mountain, showed unto him all the kingdoms of the world in a moment of time. And the devil said unto him, All this power will I give you, and the glory of them, for that is delivered unto me, and to whomsoever I will, I give it. If you will therefore worship me, all shall be yours.
Talk a little bit about that.
I mean, he basically is still saying that to everyone. But, you know, he tried to tempt, and it's just like you said, he was given dominion over this earth and everything that was in it. But he took it for evil in saying that if you will worship me, you can have the dominion of this earth and everything in it. And that's what he uses, the vanity of man, because he knows we want these things. We want to have material things. He uses the people are entertainment, the athletes, all of them, tempted them with this very same thing. If you will worship me, you can have all of this, and they do. They have it.
Yes, absolutely.
Johanna, obviously, if he could offer the Messiah all the world kingdoms, what does that tell you?
Obviously, he's been placed in charge, and all those world kingdoms presently are in control by him. We have a graphic, as a matter of fact, and the graphic, it states at the top, it said, Lucifer controls the kings of the earth. Just as King Nebuchadnezzar consulted his wizards and soothsayers and psychics in the ancient days, so does today's world leaders. And what you see there, and I know a lot of people they remember back when Reagan was in office, and it didn't stop with Reagan. It's just that it was only glamorized with Reagan.
Right.
Reagan and his wife Nancy, they were very avid psychic people with phenomena and all that kind of thing. They employed very many psychics. Jean Dixon was one of them. This person, I think her name is Joan Quigley. As a matter of fact, in the graphic, you'll see in that first woman there on the phone, they had a special phone line set up, installed in the White House, directly to her, so that they had a direct line between their psychic, between their soothsayer, to tell them, well, you should turn left today instead of right. You know, you should sign Bill 877, but not 876.
Right.
That kind of thing. So this woman and these women like this, that with their psychics, truly were running the country, not him. At the other one, you'll see it says, former President Ronald Reagan and one of his men, that's another picture of them, his many psychics that he consulted during his reign, said that he often planned his appointments based on the psychic readings and the astrological aspects of the planets. And if you see at the bottom, it even has an actual astrological chart that was set up for them for Ronald Reagan's oath of office. And this was back in January of '85. And this is what this is what they go by. This is what they truly thought as truth. And there's one other caption. It says, Ronald Reagan and Nancy have a long history of involvement with astrologers and psychics. As movie stars in the 1950s in Hollywood, they were close friends with celebrity astrologer Carol Reichter, and became a fixture at his glamorous monthly zodiac party. So they had monthly zodiac parties. This is how sick this goes. Later, they met late psychic Jean Dixon. Even as the governor and as the president, he happily made public his enjoyment of newspaper horoscopes, his many superstitions, and his avid interest in the occult. Now, how avid, and they didn't try and make it pretty by saying astrology or what have you. What do they say? Occult.
Right.
How much clearer can you possibly get?
You can't get any more demonic than that.
Remember, he was voted in a second time. So where is this world, and who is being led? And we have to go back to what the Messiah said.
Right.
Wide is the gate to destruction.
Absolutely.
Narrow and straight is that which leads to salvation.
Exactly. I'd like to take time to invite you out to the Cultural Center of the New Covenant Congregation of Israel. We're located at 3901A Covington Highway in Decatur, Georgia. Our phone number is 404-286-5869. Sorry about that. And we do have a website where you can look us up and actually view some of the TV shows and lots of online information at www.thencci.com. Again, that's www.thencci.com. We have lots of classes throughout the week planned just for you in mind. So come on out on the first day of the week, actually at 10:30 for a prophecy Bible class. On the third day of the week, which is Tuesday night at 8 o'clock, we have a history Bible class. On the 5th day of the week, which is called Thursday today, we have a sisters only Bible class at 8 o'clock. And then, of course, our Sabbath service is held on the 7th day, the Sabbath, which is by commandment of Yahweh, at 1 o'clock p.m. And we also have a pre-Sabbath Bible class that starts at 11 o'clock a.m. 1 o'clock p.m. and 11 o'clock a.m. for the pre-service class. So bring your Bible, your tape, your pencils, whatever you need to come and learn the truth and understand what sin is all about. And if you are not keeping the commandments of Yahweh, then Satan is truly your father as well. And we need to wake up and understand that it's darkness that Lucifer has us in when we deal with these things. And we need to come into the light of the truth and the knowledge of Yahweh and His saving grace. We also have a church in Charlotte, North Carolina, and their address is P.O. Box 16302 in Charlotte, North Carolina 28297. Or you can give them a call at area code 704-553-7625. Again, 704-553-7625. Our shows are shown every Saturday night at 9 o'clock p.m. So please join us the next time for this show. But in continuing on with this show, we talked about him being ruler over the kings of the earth. And the scriptures talk about that dominion, but it talks about it in the form of a great red dragon. Mm-hmm. We've also mentioned the fact that Lucifer has two goals, and that is to destroy the woman's seed, those who keep the commandments, especially us, the Hebrew Israelites, and those of other nations who take hold to us and keep Yahweh's commandments, and also to rule in Jerusalem. So let's go into, I think it's in Revelations chapter 12. Let's talk about that a little bit, because obviously he started after us from the very beginning, the woman.
And he did bring a lot of rulers over our people. I mean, he is definitely in charge of all of the present-day kings and priests and popes and everybody else. But
just like he had promised the Messiah. I'll give you all this.
Right. But they didn't, back, and you can pick it up in the book of Daniel, he brought on those 4 world empires that ruled over our people, and he's just continued on all the people in the earth that he has dominion over, except for Yahweh's elect. But you were reading in chapter 12, and I'm going to pick this up at verse 3, Revelations 12:3. And there appeared another wonder in heaven, and behold, a great red dragon, having 7 heads and 10 horns and 7 crowns upon his head. And his tail drew the 3rd part of the stars of heaven, and did cast them to the earth. And the dragon stood before the woman who was ready to be delivered, to devour her child as soon as it was born. And she brought forth a man-child, who was to rule all nations with a rod of iron. And her child was caught up unto Elohim and to his throne. And the woman fled into the wilderness, where she has a place prepared by Elohim, that they should feed her there for 3.5 years. And there was a war in heaven. Michael and his angels fought against the dragon, and the dragon fought and his angels, and prevailed not, neither was their place found any more in heaven. And the great dragon was cast out, that old serpent called the devil and Satan, who deceived the whole world. He was cast out into the earth, and his angels were cast out with him. And I heard a loud voice saying in heaven, Now is come salvation and strength, and the kingdom of our Elohim, and the power of his Messiah. For the accuser of our brethren is cast down, who accused them before our Elohim day and night.
Exactly. We saw that in the time of Job, Satan was right there appearing before with the other angels before Yahweh. Satan has had access to heaven until this time, right before the final 3.5 years. That's when he's going to think to go up there and cause some havoc. But it's not going to work. Michael and his angels are going to stand up and fight against Satan and those who turn to Satan, angelic beings, and they're going to kick him out of heaven for the last time. And then he has a short time, and that's 3.5 years, to make the whole world take his name, his number, and his mark. And he's going to do that through a man, through this final king that is already on the scenes, and we're just waiting for him to show his head, the king of Europe, and through the Pope. So, all of this stuff, this glitter and gold, the world that he presents to mankind and that they go after. I mean, everybody wants this American dream. Money, money, money. But they can't find it. They can't get any peace because money isn't the thing that they need to work to deal with. Am I correct?
Most definitely. As a matter of fact, the lust after money has become even greater in in this newest of the millenniums. The lust after money has always been there, but now you have children that are 4 and 5 that all they want is to be multi-billionaires.
Right.
You know,
and will do anything
and
to
will
get
do
it.
anything to get it. Truly. And the thing that we have to maintain and realize in the scripture, we're told that it is not just money that is evil, but the root of evil is the love of money. The love of money is the root of evil.
Absolutely.
So it's that desire to go after it, that going back, that vanity that thrives, that formulates a person to go after it. Absolutely.
And you know, that's the sad part about our people. I mean, our people didn't have much. I mean, we came out of slavery.
Right.
And we didn't have much, but what we had, we shared with one another. But now we don't know our neighbors. Now we can't go borrow that cup of sugar or, you know, some rice when you have somebody when you are in need. Because people are all about self. And they're all about getting more and more and more and more and not sharing. But the scriptures tells you that that's not what you're supposed to do. If you have, give to those who are in need. Because in doing so, you show Yahweh that you love him. But that's not what Satan wants us to do. And the whole world has gone after him.
And you know, another sad point too is not only does he use, you know, different nations like Gentiles and things like that to come against our people, but he's also using us against each other now. I mean, you know, our own preachers that are out here in Christian churches today are teaching each other to transgress Yahweh's laws. That you don't have to keep the Sabbath. That you don't have to, you know, stay away from unclean foods. There's no such thing as unclean food as long as you pray over it. You know, and the major thing is to get us to stop calling upon the name of Yahweh and just call him Lord or God, and to call his son by the name of pagan gods. You know, he has really done a number on our people and on the world in transgressing Yahweh's laws.
True indeed.
He really has.
But the scripture says that there's no amount of silver and gold, rubies and jewels that is worth more than obeying Yahweh.
That's right.
Because in the end, you're going to receive a greater reward than this material things that mankind is after. And the Christian church is the ones that have man after these things. They're the ones preaching prosperity.
That's right.
Why? Because they are one of the tools that Lucifer uses to get man off track. It's better to be poor with the word of Yahweh
Praise
than
Yah.
all the riches in the world.
Praise Yah.
And that's what mankind, especially the so-called Negro, needs to learn very, very quickly, because we know that we don't have a lot of time left. But listen to this, because this kind of, it says it all for me. And this is in 2 Thessalonians chapter 2. And I'm going to pick this up at verse 3. It says, "Let no man deceive you by any means, for that day shall not come except there come a falling away first, and that man of sin be revealed, the son of perdition," the son of Lucifer, in other words, "who opposes and exalts himself above all that is called God or that is worshipped, so that he as God sits in the temple of Elohim, showing that he himself is Elohim. Remember you not that when I was with you I told you these things, and now you know what withholdeth, that he might be revealed in his time. For the mystery of iniquity does already work. Only he who now letteth will let until he be taken out of the way. And then shall that wicked be revealed, whom Yahweh shall consume with the spirit of his mouth, and shall destroy with the brightness of his coming. Even him whose coming is after the working of Satan with all power and signs and lying wonders, and with all deceivableness of unrighteousness in them that perish, because they receive not the love of the truth, that they might be saved. For this cause Yahweh shall send them strong delusion, that they should believe a lie." First thing Satan went after, right? "That they all might be damned who believe not the truth, but have pleasure in unrighteousness." So if you're following the ways of Lucifer, believing all these lies about, you know, the Christ, that's a lie, you know, about going to heaven, about going to church on Sunday. All of these are lies that Lucifer has put out so that mankind can fall and worship him and not Yah. And it goes on from there.
And now he's going to get started here with all these holidays coming up. Thanksgiving and Christmas is high time for everybody to worship the sun, which he is the day star.
Exactly.
And that's just him. That's him.
Let's talk a little bit about his demise. Will he continue to rule this earth and to continue to deceive mankind? You read in Revelations 12 where the Satan, the devil, the great deceiver, has been kicked out of heaven, and now he's going after Israel, the woman's seed, who is now called the so-called Negro. We will be, of course, hidden in the wilderness. But at the end of that 3.5-year period, a great war is going to take place, known as the Battle of Armageddon. What's going to happen with that war, and what will happen with Lucifer and this great king and the Pope that is his two main agents that will be in the earth?
Well, to kind of set it up a little bit, we know that Israel is going to leave America and go into the wilderness and then take back the land of Jerusalem. And then that's when all of the nations of the earth, says the scripture, are going to come to pitch themselves around and try to destroy Israel. And the Messiah is going to come. In Revelation chapter 19, starting at verse 11, starts talking about, his dissension and him coming and to fight this war. And just to pick it up, 19 in chapter 17 says, "And I saw an angel standing in the sun, and he cried with a loud voice, saying to all the fowls that fly in the midst of heaven, Come and gather yourselves unto the supper of the great Elohim." And then it goes on to talk about how the Messiah destroys all of those armies that are led by Satan. And then when we get into chapter 20, verse 1, it says, "And I saw an angel come down from heaven, having the key of the bottomless pit and a great chain in his hand. And he laid hold on the dragon, that old serpent, who is the devil and Satan, and bound him 1,000 years, and cast him into the bottomless pit, and shut him up, and set a seal upon him, that he should deceive the nations no more till the 1,000 years should be fulfilled. And after that he must be loosed for a season."
And that's some deep words there. He said that a great angel is going to lay hold on the devil, the dragon, the serpent, right? Lucifer himself, and cast him into a bottomless pit on this earth. We haven't left the earth yet.
Right.
So the armies that he's gathered together to kill off us, the children of Israel, will be destroyed, and then he himself will be thrown into a pit and a great chain locked up, so that after that period, for 1,000 years, mankind cannot say what?
The devil made me
do it.
I was tempted.
I was tempted by the devil. Because he will not be able to deceive you anymore. The law of Yahweh will go forth from one end of the earth to the other, and mankind is going to learn the law. So if you sin, it won't be because you were tempted by Satan at this time.
Or that you didn't know, because we know that it'll be placed in our hearts.
All righty. Johanna, tell me, is that the end of Satan? What happens after the 1,000 years?
Well, it says, verse 20, chapter 20, verse 7, it says, "When the 1,000 years are expired, Satan shall be loosed out of his prison, and shall go out to deceive the nations which are in the four quarters of the earth, Gog and Magog, to gather them to battle, the number of whom is as the sand of the sea. And he went up from the breadth of the earth, and encompassed about the camp of the saints about, and the beloved city. And fire came down from Elohim out of heaven and devoured them. And the devil that deceived them was cast into the lake of fire and brimstone, where the beast and the false prophet are, and shall be tormented day and night forever." That's the doom of Satan.
There you go.
That's the end of his story.
There you go.
So we talked about the beginning of his story.
Right.
That's the end of his story.
Therefore, we've got to understand that Lucifer is going to have an end. And if you want to be with your father, the devil, you're going to be in that lake of fire, burning with him, this king, and the Pope. So thank you all so much for joining us tonight. Hope you've enjoyed our show. Give us a call if you need us. We'll be here for you to give you the knowledge of the scriptures, taking the mystery out of biblical history. Thank you so much, and good night.
I say yes, you say no way. Living most of disagreeable. You love me now, I